Turn by McKenna! Lovely cushion header. And Gerrard! What a head, son! What a head! Aguero!
Akash from Unitedlink and Robbie from Unitedspeaks. So they're back again to talk to me about Man United's incredible victory yesterday. I mean, I can't remember us playing that well and feeling this positive about United since the Fergie days, really. So, Akash, how are you doing today and how are you feeling after that wonderful victory?
Thank you for having me on. It's a privilege, like always. I'm extremely happy, to be honest. I was expecting a tough game because Brighton have done extremely well when it comes to facing sides like Arsenal or any of the top sides. It's not easy going to their stadium and getting the 3 points. But I think from the minute go, we saw an extremely positive impact. The team started extremely well. We were pressing really well. We had great amount of possession, and I think we gradually grew into the game. And like always, some players have really stepped up after the lockdown, and I'm really happy to see that. I think the Bruno Pogba partnership has really clicked. One person controls midfield, and the other has tries to make a difference in the final third. So it's really clicking for us at the moment, and I think one player who goes under the radar is Matic. But I'd just like to say that he's been tremendous after his return from injury, and overall I think it was a sensational performance. I think one of the best performances we've had this year. And certain players have stepped up, and I'm extremely happy that we were able to get all the 3 points.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And you make some really good points about that midfield. And I just want to ask you, Robbie, about what your view is going into the game, because we had a game against Norwich, and what we saw on Twitter was, quite frankly, one of the most absurd things I've ever seen. And it was Bruno getting slandered, Bruno getting hate from several people. It wasn't just a small minority. And what you were seeing was two things: either people criticizing the way that he perhaps looks for that final ball a bit too much, which again for me is crazy. I can understand where they're coming from. Perhaps sometimes he shoots too much when an easier pass is on. And also, I think people were unhappy with the Norwich performance, and unfortunately, I think that was Bruno's probably his worst game, even though he still created around 5 chances in the game, which is crazy. So what's your view on the criticism that Bruno's got, and your view on him as a player?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back on the podcast. And
no problem, mate. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and from the game yesterday, I really enjoyed it. Pretty sure everyone did. But going back to the Norwich game, I feel as if I'm too grateful Bruno to actually slate him. He plays. I think he plays every game with a smile on his face. He's a magician with the ball at his feet. Probably the best we've had for years. And I just wonder what it would be like to have him from the start of the season. Like people have always been slating Manchester United in the past. You know that, and Bruno's no different. And we have seen he is doing stuff for Manchester United that no other player has done really recently. He's playing every game, and he doesn't look as if he's shown any levels of tiredness or anything. He's playing at a high level constantly. And I also need to thank Ole for that as well, because he's picked players well, such as Bruno, and Wan-Bissaka, who I thought had a great game as well, and Maguire, because they seem to be match fit every game, and they're turning over points and getting us higher up in the league now, which obviously we're hoping for a top 4 finish, which would be really good. But I must say, I don't agree with the critics on Bruno. I think he's been our best player since the restart, and I can't wait for United to bolster the team for the following season, and I hope they spend wisely in the market. because we don't need individuals. We need squad players who are all going to work together, just like Bruno.
Absolutely. And Akash, what's your view on the Bruno criticism before I ask you about that midfield combination?
I think the criticism was over the top, and I honestly didn't understand it at first because he was honestly just trying to get uh, United to be more of a threat in the final third, and because you're not able to break down the opposition easily that day. So, there are days when even the best of players have off days, and you need to cut Bruno some slack because honestly he's been tremendous ever since he's arrived, and I think one game, even though he struggled, he still created. Like you mentioned, he still managed to create chances, and I think we need to give him credit for always trying. And you need that player who pushes the whole team, and I think Bruno is one player who's done that, and he really raises his standard not only for himself but for everyone who's at the club, and everyone looks at him like a role model. And I'm really happy that he's joined Manchester United because we need more players like him. And he's had a tremendously positive impact on the club. And I think we should be just happy that he's chosen us. And I think a lot of clubs were interested in him, but he's still chosen us. And I'm really happy that I hope this goes on for a really long time.
Absolutely, that's a great answer. And the way I see Bruno is that I think he's absolutely magical. I think the impact he's had has just been immense. I mean, you can't measure it just by goals, assists, all these other stats. I have a friend who's a Chelsea fan, and he tweeted me and he said after the Norwich game, "Oh, Bruno, told you he's overrated. He loses the ball too much." And I think that's just absolute rubbish. And I tweeted him in the game yesterday. I atted him. And I said, "Look, mate, Bruno's having a blinder," and never replied to me. And I think the issue is that it's always been the case, hasn't it, with Man United, where fans are starting to get worried from opposition sides. And you guys know me, I'm one of those who's very cautious, and I think you both are the same. That very cautious to not get too carried away because we've had many false dawns. I mean, we came second under Jose. But when I look at this team, and especially Bruno, I'm just starting to see how his personality is just infectious in so many aspects. And Bruno is, in many ways, he's kind of that Cantona-esque impact. He's in that Cantona-esque sort of player when Fergie signed him, where he's just lifted everybody. It's not just about the quality on the pitch, it's about his personality. And I think what really showed it for me yesterday was when I don't know if you guys saw the interview he had after the game, and they asked him about how him and Pogba's relationship's going. Yeah, and
I agree with you. I agree with you on this because I've spoken to someone who's supported Sporting for a long time, and they just mentioned to me that while he was at the club, every single game was a pleasure to watch because he lifted the entire team, and that's
absolutely.
the kind of impact that he has, and even after coming to United, and you can see that he's brought that. A hard worker's mentality, and you can see that he covered more ground than Matic after playing more like substantial minutes at Norwich. So you can imagine the kind of hard work and determination this player has, and it's tremendous. To be honest, it just lifted everyone, and like you said, he has tremendous qualities, and I just hope that Pogba sorts his contract out and manages to stay for another year because I think we have a fantastic midfield, probably the best in the league.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I need to agree on that with Bruno. I feel as if he's a great leader, and I do think that. I think he should now be thought about for being captain because at Sporting he was a league above, and really he's brought a feel-good factor back to Manchester United, I would say, just now.
Absolutely. I think you make a good point about him being captain, but I think what has been the most refreshing thing about him is that he always is looking for that positive pass, and that's what he's been criticised for. And it's ludicrous because when you think about what has been our biggest problem, it's the fact that we started the season with Lingard, Pereira in midfield, and there was one point. Look, I don't want to be too harsh on Pereira because it's just quite clear that he's just such a big step down from Bruno, and I don't think it's ever a case of Pereira not trying hard or not working hard because I think he's got a good attitude. He's clearly come through the academy. He's someone that he by all accounts he's a good lad.
But he wouldn't even start for Brighton. Let's be honest.
No, he wouldn't even start for Brighton. Yeah, absolutely. And when I look at, there was one phase right at the end of the game. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Pereira had the ball and he was running with it. He stopped and passed it backwards to the centre backs. And Bruno's always looking for that pass. Yes, he has that quality, but I think what's brilliant about him, is that you look at, we signed him for, I believe, £47 million. I might be wrong there, around about that figure, but that's starting to look like a bargain now. And he's a definition for me of a game-changing signing, and we need to be signing these game-changing signings. And I just want to talk about Matic because he has, just the most unbelievable turnaround. He's excellent positionally, and I think what's been the massive change for Pogba, because I think Pogba's playing his best football since he joined, and he's not scoring goals. He got an assist yesterday for Bruno, but he's just playing disciplined. He's very effective on the ball. He looks like he has more time than anyone else, and I do think that's down to the fact that Bruno is an extra threat for the opposition. So while before Pogba was taking the ball off the centre-backs and he was asked to do all the attacking work because Lingard was offering nothing but running, and Matic isn't a creative midfielder. But now what you're seeing is that Pogba's got a lot more time on the ball. He's picking the passes, and Matic is just putting on a simple, excellent, style of football. He's just doing everything right. All the simple, basic parts of football he's doing correctly. He keeps the ball moving. He's spotting the counterattacks in defence. He's so tidy in possession. And it's just easy for all the creative players in the team when you've got someone like Matic just mopping up and allowing you, or setting that foundation for you to attack. So I just want to know your view, Robbie, on Matic. And I agree with Akash, by the way. I know we did a podcast earlier and I said I don't think Pogba will stay, and I'm not so sure if I want him to, but oh God, I want him to stay. Even if he's not 100% committed, I want him to stay because when he plays the way he's been playing, he's up there with De Bruyne. I know that sounds like me getting excited, and I'm usually a little bit more, I wouldn't say negative, maybe a bit more of a realist, but he's that good. So what's your view on Matic? And and what do you think of the midfield? Because Akash has already mentioned he thinks it's the best in the league, and I think it's definitely up there.
Yeah, I'm happy you're going more towards my views now and supporting them. But yeah, my midfield three was correct. So I do think that Matic's been outstanding in the holding role. I wouldn't say he's put a foot wrong throughout the games that he's played. He gives the team stability, which was necessary so that Bruno and Pogba could play at the best of their ability. I think he complements Bruno and Pogba, so it'll be difficult to replace next year or the year after because obviously he's in his 30s now. So honestly, I wish he was 10 years younger because he's been amazing this season. He's been amazing since the restart. But if I had to choose a replacement in the future, I don't think it would be like for like. I think it would be someone who would be very mobile, like Thomas Partey. I don't know. I've seen a few names pop up in the defensive role behind Pogba and Bruno, and it seems to be Declan Rice and Zakaria, but I feel as if Partey is just the perfect fit for a lot less money. I do think that also when Bruno scored the second goal, Brighton were just looking to get back into the game. I heard a quote from Gary Neville and it almost sounded like the class of 2008. I don't know if you can remember this goal in a few years, but it was one of my favourite players started it. It was Park, Rooney and Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And Matic, what was that? That ball was just fantastic to start it. And Greenwood did not stop. A beautiful pass and finish for Bruno, which was outstanding. I can't ask for any more.
Absolutely, it was absolutely exquisite. I mean, talk to me, Akash, about that goal, because for me, I felt like I had gone in a time machine and gone back, and I was sitting in Fergie's days watching Park, Ronaldo, and Rooney tear Arsenal apart. And for me, it was all Matic. It was like Robbie said, it was the vision, and Greenwood driving forward, clipping an absolutely exquisite cross for Bruno just to power home on the volley. I mean, it was United at their counter-attacking best, and it's interesting that Robbie does talk about Partey because I think he looks like he's Arsenal bound, and I like him, but I'm not convinced by Declan Rice. I think he's good defensively. I'm not sure if he's got good enough quality on the ball in terms of his passing range to be a title-winning defensive midfielder. But it's quite clear that Oli does want a defensive midfielder who can play a little bit. And Matic's passing is actually very, very underrated. I would say that he's actually more of a like-for-like replacement for Carrick that we've been wanting for a long time. So what's your view on the third goal and where Oli sees this defensive midfielder position, or where he wants it to be, in what direction?
When you look at the third goal, most of the defensive midfielders couldn't have pulled that pass off. To be very honest, it's extremely difficult to get the precision and to get the right flight for the ball. It's extremely difficult, and that's how you know that Matic is technically gifted. He's extremely good with his shooting, and his passing is tremendously good. So you need to he has great technique, and I think. I know I might be a little unjust on this, but I'm kind of glad it was Greenwood on that side of the wing who went and crossed the ball to Matic, because I somehow feel that had it been Rashford, he's been in good form this season, and I wouldn't slate him for that. But I think that ever since his return, he's been good with his passing, but he's not been in the most he's not been his old self. And I think he's holding himself back. So I'm kind of glad that it was Greenwood on that side who crossed the ball to Bruno. And, it's like deja vu, because we've seen this sort of goal when we played Arsenal. And I think as per the reports from The Athletic, this goal was faster than that goal that we scored against Arsenal. Wow. So you can see that we were extremely efficient. We were extremely quick on the ball. Obviously, the quality of sides mattered. That time it was Arsenal, and this time it's Brighton. So obviously, we need to take that into account. But you can just see that United are learning the trade again. We are learning how to be dangerous again. And I think I'm just happy that it was Bruno that who finished the chance off, because we need him to be at his best. Because when he's in a good mood, he lifts the whole team up. And that's not been the case with Pogba individually, because let's be honest, he's not had the kind of support before Bruno. And I think having quality players around him just makes him want to shine as well as a United player, because that shows ambition and drive. When we talk about ambition and drive, it just reminds me of the days of Rooney wanting to leave the club and saying that the club weren't ambitious enough. And that's when we went ahead and made a few statement signings. And I think Bruno Fernandes is a statement signing by all means. And talking about the United being good on the counter attack, I think it's Ole's been working extremely hard, and credit where due with regards to Ole. And answering your second part of the question, can you just repeat that part?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we all love Matic, but he's not exactly young. He's starting to age. So where do you see Oli going with the defensive midfielder position, and who would you like to see there? Because I think that we're going to probably address that position next summer.
We have had so many links, with regards to Declan Rice. There were recent reports that Chelsea might go for him, and they might play him in the centre-back position, because he's extremely versatile in terms of his, positioning. He can play the centre back role and the defensive midfield role. So, United were interested in Declan Rice, and there were several reports which suggested that United would make a move, but the price at that time before the coronavirus came was extremely high. So a lot of teams were just put off by the price. But I think a lot depends on whether West Ham stay in the league or not. And if they manage to stay up, then obviously West Ham will demand a good fee. But if they don't, then I think they'll sell him on the cheap. And Chelsea are favourites right now. But with regards to Partey, I think Arsenal are extremely well positioned to sign him. As per the reports that I've read, and a few people that I've spoken to who are, hearing things about this transfer, I think he is Arsenal bound, and I think there are a lot of positives in that deal for the Gunners. So obviously there are two aspects which they need to look at. One being that the affordability, and will Lacazette be going the other way? Will they be able to afford the release clause? Will the mode of payment that has to be done? So there are a lot of criteria which need to be met. So, with regards to United, who I would like, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Partey, but he's off to Arsenal. So I think United will have to continue looking. I'm also a huge fan of Zakaria. I think he's done extremely well. Uh, and also Ndidi. Ndidi is another option. We've been linked to him as well. Tremendous player. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. Not as good as on the ball as Rice, in my opinion, because uh, with regards to how Ole plays, I think Rice will be of a better fit. But
Yeah, I
Ndidi
agree.
is my
Yeah.
choice if we don't get Partey.
Yeah, and Didi was always my first choice for years. But as I'm seeing you look at all the top sides and their defensive midfielder. Look at Liverpool. Fabinho is phenomenal on the ball, and then you're looking at City. They've got Rodrigo, Fernandinho, phenomenal on the ball. Barcelona, Busquets. You look at Real Madrid. They've got Casemiro. So for me, I'm starting to think that although I love Ndidi, I love how he's explosive. He's like two men sitting there in defensive midfield. He's a very very intelligent player as well in his interceptions. But I think that if we're going to move forward and we're going to compete with the very best, that we need someone who's sitting deep, who can be essentially can drop in between the centre backs and pick the ball up and spray those passes. And that's why, if it's just a curveball, if Van der Beek could be converted into a deep lying playmaker, that would be another very interesting option, because that allows you to keep the ball at an absolute ridiculous pace. But let's move on. And Robbie, I wanted to speak to you about Mason Greenwood, because I tweeted yesterday that I honestly think, well, like I said, he's a generational talent, and I completely believe that. I usually hate that phrase because I think it's football Twitter.
Overused.
It's so
Overused.
overused. Everyone's generation. Yeah, that's the word. It's just so, what, like everyone's world class now, aren't they? Or, everyone's the next Messi or whatever, and it's just rubbish. But I truly believe that Mason Greenwood is a star. And I would argue that in terms of raw ability, I think he is more promising than Rashford. And what's been really, really impressive is the fact that he's got 13 goals in all competitions at the age of 18, 6 in the Premier League. And I believe I saw a statistic today that he is the first person, I believe, teenager to get more than 5 goals in the Premier League since Wayne Rooney. And look how well Wayne Rooney turned out. He was all right, wasn't he? So what I really like about Mason Greenwood, and what I like in comparison to Dan James, and I'm happy that Ollie's seen the light and has given James a little bit of a rest and put him on the bench, because Greenwood can operate in those small spaces. And if we look at the goal, he got the ball facing the defense, and then he turned and he carried the ball with such conviction. And then the finish was just a trademark finish. I mean, he's been hitting those low ones into the bottom right-hand corner for fun this season. And he has great composure, great technique, such a clinical finisher. I'd argue he's maybe our best finisher in our squad, even better than Martial. And he reminds me so much of Van Persie. I know it's been said a lot, but he's got that natural instinct and finishing ability that you just can't teach. And we look at Rashford, he's a great all-round player, but I think his finishing was always a bit of a problem. He has improved this season. And I think what you're seeing now is that United can now punch the ball forward from midfield. They've now got ball players. You've got Matic, who can now feed it into the likes of Rashford and Pogba and Bruno, and they can turn and they can play these balls. And that's something United couldn't do before. So how impressive have you been with Mason Greenwood, and how far can you see him going? Very early days, mind.
Yeah, that performance yesterday, it was just too good for someone who's played little time in the first team environment. It was amazing, and for me, he deserved the man of the match. I think it's a privilege as well to have him at Man United and to have a player of his calibre at such a young age. So, for going on to the game, United were obviously still yet to beat Brighton at the Amex since the return to the Premier League. So it looked like a kind of cursed team to us, but he showed some really great work to chase down players right at the very start of the game, to put them under pressure. They were sitting deep throughout the game. Lamptey and Bissouma were basically playing and making it a back six, so it was hard to get in. I'd say he is one of the best teenagers in the world just now, and he was on fire with obviously the assist that we've previously spoke about, and the goal today, it was just too good. His double step over as well, it just showed how good he is with the ball at his feet and running at the defenders. He's got no fear. He's one of a kind with stupid ability as well by running down on players. they almost look confused as he's 2-footed, so he can obviously cut inside or hit the line. So obviously can't wait for the future, as I believe he'll only get better if he keeps his head down and works hard to get to an elite level. And hopefully looking down the line, he can get United back to where they belong, winning titles and prestigious trophies. And I think Greenwood should be the striker for years to come.
Great answer. And Akash, what's your view? Because and we'll talk about Jadon Sancho later, but what I don't like is that when you see, and Mason's very, very young. Don't get me wrong, he's supremely talented. But my view has always been that I know if you're old enough, you're good enough. But what thing I would have against the way that Wayne Rooney was handled was that he was burnt out by the age of like 24, 25, because at such a young age, he was played every single game and he was supremely talented, but he was not looked after properly. Look at Michael Owen's, another example where he burst onto the scene at 18 years old, won the Ballon d'Or, which is absolutely incredible. And then by the time he's hit his late 20s, he's finished. He's equivalent of an early 30s or mid 30s at the age of 30 years old. So my theory is that although Greenwood's brilliant, I think he's still got to be eased in. I don't think he should be starting week in, week out. And for us to compete at the next level, and we'll talk about our depth later and our transfers, but quite clearly our depth in our squad's poor. And you look at City, they can play with Mahrez and Sterling and Sane and Bernardo Silva. That's 4 quality wingers. And Foden can also play on the wing. So for those saying that United shouldn't buy anyone because you've got Greenwood and James, Greenwood's going to have a dip in form because he is young. You can't expect him to be carrying Man United at the age of 18.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But it's at the moment, as things stand, there's no reason to drop Greenwood. I think there's no justification. The only reason we can say that he cannot play is because we don't want him to get overworked. And I think this season, I think this is a great audition for him. Can he cement his place in the team? Can he start in, week out? So, like you mentioned, like if your age is just it's a menial factor, but with regards to Sancho, I think he adds a different dimension to our game if he comes. I think rotation is key in every title-winning squad, and you cannot expect Greenwood to play all the games, like you said. So obviously, Sancho will add a different element in this team. I think he will have a extremely positive impact. I think Sancho's done so well considering his age and played abroad and played in Germany. And I wrote an article a few weeks back and I analyzed how he's performed in Germany, and his stats are extremely positive. And there's a reason why United are ready to pay big money, irrespective of what is being reported in the market, because that's how it is. United don't want to come across as a club who will pay 100 million upfront, because that's going to ruin our reputation in the market, and teams are going to take us for granted. So that's why you'll continue to see articles which will state that United are not interested in the player, and maybe they're looking at other options. They don't wish to pay the big money, but eventually you will see them meeting the BVB somewhere in the region of 70 and 80 million, where they pay that kind of money. But I think it's important that we have some perspective and not get emotional, because if we get emotional, then that burden of carrying United is not easy, and especially at that age. So I think even the manager knows that even though this current form is fantastic, it's important to strengthen in key positions, and the right wing is one. And just one thing that I've been disappointed with is after the lockdown is how James has performed. Not been a huge fan of what he's been doing of late. I think he's become extremely predictable. So he needs to, I think, be benched and only played in games where the first team is not playing. I think he needs to improve. I think he's done well in the overall season, but not well after he's returned from the lockdown.
I completely agree. And you touched on Sancho, and I completely agree with you. And Twitter blew up yesterday because, and Sky Sports, by the way, they used to be the most reliable, but they are just as bad as the Sun now. And you have these rumors that United won't go above 50 million, and then it's just the whole sort of overreaction, the meltdown, which happens every single time a different report comes out. As far as I'm concerned, the most reliable the most reliable sources, such as Laurie Whitwell, the ones in the Athletic, are all saying that United are very, very interested. Sancho wants United. Man United are the only team in for him, and that the price is it's ranging, they're saying, between 80 to 120 million, which, of course, you're completely right. We're not going to go and spend 100 million, one, in this climate, two, because if we just go in and slap straight down 100 million, it's just an absolutely crazy, crazy thing to do. So, in my opinion, it's just a negotiation ploy. But I want to ask you, Robbie, what's your view? Because when I look at Bayern Munich, the way that they're run, so they've just gone and signed Leroy Sané for £41 million, which, okay, he's in his final year, but that's just phenomenal business. Alphonso Davies, they signed for 11 million.
Yeah.
Serge Gnabry, 7. Joshua Kimmich, 6.5. And then they got Goretzka and Lewandowski both for free. I mean, that's a combined total of 65.5 million. They've replaced Robben and Ribéry, arguably two of the most, I don't know, two of the most best wingers we've seen in the modern era, especially in the last 20 years. And here United are, years down the line, we haven't had a right winger for years. And do you really have confidence, though, that this board can actually get this transfer done? I think it will get done, but it's going to be a saga, and unfortunately our fans aren't the most patient.
Yeah, I need to agree with you. I don't trust Sky Sports anymore. I don't know if you guys viewed my tweet whenever the whole Sancho report came out, saying that they're not going to go above 50 million. They've lost all sort of reliability for me. I think it seems really unrealistic that we'll be able to get Sancho for that price, and I can't really see the reliability in it. By the looks of it, the transfer will go the whole window, with negotiations probably going above the 50 million mark, as it seems like Sancho is by far our number one target. I can't think of any other player that would be welcomed into Old Trafford more than Jadon Sancho at the moment of time. Maybe you can tell me different, but definitely not for me. His directness suits Ole's style by allowing Martial, Greenwood and Rashford to flourish in the wings and hopefully provide a great end product, as what he's shown in Germany. It would be frightening to have all four of them in the one team, but I think it would be quite difficult, and it would need rotation for it to work, as I originally didn't believe that Greenwood would be playing as many games as he is right now, but he's been outstanding since the restart. But I need to agree with Akash. I said it would be great to strengthen the positions out wide, as James has been struggling recently since the restart, which is disappointing for us, and especially whenever he come on yesterday, I felt as if his decision making,
think, Robbie, that
was very poor.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that maybe we should be looking to loan him, because his confidence was shot yesterday completely. And quite frankly, the way I'm looking at it, and Chong's done nothing for me really when I've seen him play, but I would be tempted to even give Chong some more game time over him, because I really think that, I think he's a bit of a liability playing. And as Akash says, on the whole, I think James has been good. He's got 6 assists, and I believe he's quite high up in our standings, maybe the highest. But I just saw a player that's lacking confidence, and a player that, quite frankly, even as a bench player, I don't think is good enough for Man United. I mean, Leeds were after him, and none of the big sides were. In hindsight, yes, 15 million is a good deal, but if United were recruiting properly, he wouldn't be anywhere near a club the size of Man United. Is that reactionary? I don't know.
Yeah, he got off to a fantastic start, and we thought, wow, we've got a bargain here. I think he was around about the 15 million mark. I'm going to be honest, I never heard him before the links, and I did watch a lot of videos on him and his games, and I saw his game against Manchester City, and he did look good, but not United level, I wouldn't say. Maybe he could be a squad player, but just now he's very young and needs to learn a lot. So I think I need to agree with you. I think he would benefit from a season out on loan. I couldn't really tell you where to, if it's Premier League, Championship or abroad. I would probably say a team in the Premier League would take him, but it just all depends on minutes. If he's not getting enough minutes, I would say Championship then.
Very interesting. What do you think, Akash, on James? Last point before we move on to our fullbacks.
I think a loan will be an overreaction at this moment, and I feel that Ole will keep him in the squad. Reason being that he helps stretch oppositions in vital phases of the game. So and Ole can use that as a tactic, and I think he will. Obviously, ideally we should loan him out, but I don't think Ole will take that decision because I think he wants to keep him in the squad, and obviously he shouldn't be starting all games. I feel that Greenwood. Martial and Rashford is the best front three that we have at the moment, and that's what we should be sticking to. And in games where we need to rotate, that's where James needs to start. And teams who decide to sit back and not and just play on the counter, that's where I think James fails to create an impression because he often runs across the wing, but he doesn't have the ability to go past the defender based on pure technique. So I think that's where he'll struggle, and I think for majority of the season he's played on the right wing, but he's also been extremely comfortable on the left wing, and that's where his comfort levels are. So I think when you play a player out of position, and also based on his limitations, that will obviously not get the best output. So if you play James in his best position, then I think he could still make an impact. But if he's going to start on the right wing, then I think it's only in games where rotation is key.
That's good. Good point. And you do make a good point that he is something different. He does stretch defenses, so that is always an asset. And I always think that when I see him play, when we are looking to stretch tired legs, he is perfect. But his ability on the ball is just not good enough for me at the moment. Hopefully he improves. Okay, so let's talk about Luke Shaw because he's a very interesting one. I think it's universally recognized that he has had an absolutely shocking injury, and that has definitely knocked the sort of player that we wanted to see out of the question. I think what you're seeing now, though, is that Ollie's brought him back to a decent level. I wouldn't say outstanding, but I'd say a decent level. But what I saw yesterday was what I've wanted to see from him all the time. And I want to see him make good runs into the box, I want to see him overlapping Rashford, being direct, because too often when he has the ball, he looks for the easy one inside instead of either taking the man on, giving and going with Rashford, and his crossing for me is just not up to scratch. And if Man United want to win the league, I don't think that Luke Shaw's this sort of left back at the required quality for us to win the league. And I just want to look at Andy Robertson. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. He's easily clear of everyone else in the league, and he's direct, he's explosive, he can defend, he's great going forward, he's an excellent crosser, he's absolutely fearless. I know Robbie will love it that I'm saying this. It must be hard having such a good Scottish player, but he plays for Liverpool. But he's just everything that embodies like a world-class left back, And I think what Shaw does is he comes narrow usually in defence, and we saw that against Spurs, and he doesn't have that pace anymore, that explosive pace, and I think it's quite easy to exploit both on the outside and the inside. And when you've got Maguire, who's so slow, it's a bit of a problem on that left side of defence. But to Shaw's credit, I think he was brilliant yesterday. I thought he made some really good forward runs early on. Need to see him doing this more. So where do you sit on Shaw? Because I think left back has become a priority. I like Brandon Williams, but he isn't ready to start for me.
Whoever follows my account knows that I'm not a huge fan of Luke Shaw. I feel that despite his injury, he's been given a lot of chances by managers who have constantly had problems with his attitude, or maybe his fitness, or maybe just his style of play. So what takes me back is Mourinho saying that he had to be the brain and give the tactics to Shaw, and Shaw had to simply follow those tactics because otherwise he wouldn't be able to survive in the game. So there has been criticism of Shaw for a very long time, and I think that it's obviously unfair because to blame him all the time for our shortcomings as a team. But to be very honest, when teams tend to attack us, they do it from the left side rather than go on the right side, because they know that Luke Shaw might not be the fastest or might not. See, he's a great defender. I won't lie. His defensive statistics are actually good if you analyze them and if you take them into account. But when he goes forward, what does he offer on the table? It's literally playing with one less player. So yesterday was an extremely positive performance, and I tweeted it during the game that I was extremely happy with his approach to the game. He was extremely direct. Like you mentioned, the runs. He was extremely good in that aspect. He totally outplayed all the players yesterday, in my opinion, because he was showing intent from the minute go, and I think he needs to carry this on, because at United, playing one good game in 5 games is not good enough. Even though we might enjoy that one game, you need consistency, because that's what helps build title winning sides. And I think he needs to work on this. He needs to be more direct, and I think Ole's coaching has had a limited impact on his abilities. I still think he needs to offer a lot more. I think one good game doesn't change what's been going on for a year. I think he needs to put his head down and continue doing what he did yesterday. That'll be good. That'll save his career at the club.
Absolutely, that's a fantastic answer. Robbie, what's your view? Because I know last time we had a conversation on the podcast, I think you were more in favour of Brandon Williams. Is that still your view now after you've had around 3 weeks since we last spoke?
Yeah, well, I feel as if since the return, focusing on Shaw firstly, I feel as if he looked very sharp and ready for the game. But I still do have my doubts over Luke Shaw, along with yourself, to whether he is really like a Premier League winning level left back. Sorry. I hope that United obviously are still monitoring a left back, and I feel as if we've not been linked to many, but I feel as if it's a very high priority for us, because yesterday it's been one of Luke Shaw's best games. However, he's not had many. For a review of yesterday's game, though, I'd say he played with real power to attack, whilst Bissouma and Lamptey on both sides, they've actually played in a defensive line for the first whistle, as I said earlier on, so it was difficult to break them down in the first 10 minutes. But he still found a way to pull through. But as you said about his crossing, it was still a very poor cross, and it's somehow found a way to Bruno, which thankfully went in. But overall, it was a really good performance, and probably one of the best that I've seen from Shaw since his long-term injury, which let him down. And I think we need to also concentrate on Wan-Bissaka's game yesterday. I feel as if he was fabulous when attacking and defending. He's not shown any defensive issues, and probably the best defensive fullback, I would say, in the league. However, going forward, that was his issue. So over the break, I'm pretty sure we've all seen the videos of him practicing his crossing. It suggests that obviously Ole and the staff have been working hard on the end product for the wing backs. And for a while before the break, United had a great, I'd say, plan A, whilst the big teams defending as a unit and countering aggressively. However, there was no plan B for teams that sat in, for teams like Brighton. Whereas now I've seen improvements as full-backs can help to chip in with assists and start promising attacks. Like Luke Shaw's ball into the box today for Bruno's goal, and Wan-Bissaka's assist to provide Greenwood with a clear run at the defence. I thought that was a great setup as well. But yeah,
absolutely.
Overall, I'm still
that's all right.
Really into Brandon Williams. I think he is great, but you need to obviously work on his end product as well, because he's very young.
Absolutely, and you bring up Wan-Bissaka. Yeah, I want to ask you, Akash, quick before we go to the dreaded topic of Liverpool. But I want to ask you about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because what really stood out to me, it's tough. What really stood out to me was his assist, and he showed courage not to play the ball back, because I think one thing I will say about United's fullbacks, quite clearly, Ole wants them to be providing more going forward. And I had a sort of a debate with someone on Twitter the other day about how we want our fullbacks to play. And if you look at Liverpool, the whole system revolves around Trent and Robertson really providing that width and the crossing ability, and they're both absolutely phenomenal at it. But there's less onus, perhaps, let's say, on Trent to defend. And then you look at Pep, where his fullbacks come infield, and then it's the wingers providing the width. So for me, I was just trying to see what does Ollie actually want from him, because I didn't see anything either way. We played 5 at the back, and usually against the bigger sides, usually the wing backs are meant to be the ones providing that width. But if I look at both our fullbacks, you wouldn't say traditionally they're both the most attacking fullbacks. But what you're seeing from Wan-Bissaka is that he's looking for that positive pass. And I do think Greenwood coming in has definitely helped him in his case, because there's more space for him to drive forward down the flank. But where do you see sort of Wan-Bissaka's progression? Because for me, I see him as a more defensive option, but he's actually better now going forward than Shaw is. And what I saw from Ollie is that Matic did at times drop deep in between the centre-backs. And it was almost like a 3-4-3 sort of formation. You saw the full-backs were pushed up and they were providing a lot of width. So where do you see Ollie sort of, I suppose, going with his full-backs? And that surely means that Shaw...
Yeah, I taking your question into account, I think there's been a lot of change in coaching with regards to how we play with our fullbacks now. I think you can see that directness in our play, not only with Wan-Bissaka but with Shaw as well. If you see before the lockdown, Wan-Bissaka would always have the most amount of tackles, would be brilliant defensively as always, but he wouldn't offer much going forward. But I think ever since I returned from lockdown, I think there was a report which stated that Ole wanted more from his fullback. So and they wanted the players to be more attack minded and contribute in the final third. So I think Wan-Bissaka has adapted to Ole's coaching well. Shaw might have to work a little harder on that regard, but I think Wan-Bissaka has settled really well. I think he's had a tremendous impact at United. Extremely positive player, keeps his head down, does whatever the manager asks him to do. He doesn't, cause much trouble, and that's the kind of players that you want, because everyone who knows Wan-Bissaka has always appreciated his attitude from the moment this transfer story came out to the moment that he's played for this club. I think not many can complain about Wan-Bissaka because he's had such a positive impact. So I think this player that we have in our hands has great potential, has a very high ceiling in terms of his capability. And I think, coaching gradually settles in. And once you start adapting to it, it'll become much easier. Like now we have Greenwood, we have James. But I think with Sancho possibly coming in, you could see Wan-Bissaka being even more attacking minded. It just depends on the team chemistry, and I think that builds over time. And I think with Ole's coaching, it's just been a little over a year, so I think we can expect more in the coming seasons, definitely.
Absolutely, that's a fantastic response. And let's go on to Armageddon, and we're going to talk about Liverpool's title victory. And I just want to sort of talk about what it means for United, because honestly, I never thought we would see this happen in our lifetime. But the day that Liverpool signed Jurgen Klopp, I had this gut feeling. And I remember saying to my brother, almost 4 years ago now, I said, if Klopp's backed, he's going to win the Premier League for Liverpool. Because given his success at Dortmund and his ability to topple Bayern Munich, it's just quite clear to everyone that he is a world-class manager. And I think when you look at Jose's season where he came second, Liverpool was sitting in fourth, and Klopp had a lot of doubters at Liverpool. If you look at their fan base, they were not happy with him. And what did Liverpool do that United didn't? They invested, and United didn't back Jose. And Jose had his own issues, the style of play, etc., etc. But we came in second in the league, and we should have really pushed forward and progressed. And what did Liverpool do? They signed Alisson and Virgil van Dijk, changed their team, and they went from top four contenders to title contenders, and eventually now they're champions. And I think United's board have to do the same as what Liverpool's board has done. And I think we all saw in the Norwich game that the biggest issue was that depth. And it's a massive problem that when you take out Bruno, when you take out Pogba, you have, quite frankly, the most appalling squad depth. Lingard and Pereira should not be playing for Man United. They're just not good enough. And for me, that means Ole must be backed. And you guys all know, and I wouldn't say, I think something which I give myself credit for, maybe I shouldn't give myself credit for this. It's what you should do. But, I had beliefs against Ollie. It was never against him as a player or a person, or I absolutely love him. But I always had doubts on the fact that I didn't think that he was the sort of manager that could take us to the title. I just didn't think that he had it in him, and his record doesn't suggest that he can. He was staring down the barrel, quite frankly, this season, and he ended up signing Bruno. And to Ollie's credit, look, what you saw yesterday was, you could see that they were coached well. There was clearly a style, there's a pattern that he was wanting to imprint on the players. And my biggest fear is that United get top 4 or they get into Champions League, and then the board think, okay, that's good enough. And then they don't go and sanction Sancho. And Sancho is not enough, by the way. They need to go and get a Van der Beek. For me, I don't even think have just Van der Beek is enough. I think they need a Grealish. They're not going to go and sanction, obviously, close to £200 million on 3 signings. But for me, whenever we've got into the top 4, the board has just decided, okay, that's enough. And Woodward cannot mess up this summer, because quality is needed to carry on the progression. And there is progression. There's a lot of progression at Man United, and Ollie deserves a lot of credit. There's too many fans out there, and I'm happy to turn around if he wins the title that I was wrong. I'm happy to do that. I still think Pochettino's a better manager? Yes. But Ollie deserves a window. He deserves another season, because clearly there's progression. And those fans out there that can't see that, it's just an agenda, pure and simple. And you have ones that are just sitting there spouting negativity after negativity. And it's just not something which is positive for the club. But for me, I think that this is the most likeable side since Fergie left. It's no coincidence that with more technically gifted players, we're able to break teams down. And we saw that yesterday. We would have struggled against Brighton and those sort of teams before the break. But Akash, what did Liverpool's title win mean for United? And look, Liverpool deserve to be title winners. They have the best side, they have the best team, they're a phenomenal team to watch. Unfortunately, their fans are just they're just insufferable. So what's your view?
It's not easy talking about this, because I always try to avoid talking about this. But now that we speak about it, I think it's obviously not a good feeling to see one of your biggest rivals lift a title. And I think they've not done it for so many years. So we always were entitled. We had that feeling that we were always superior. And when someone tries to come for your crown, it's tough. But they are currently better positioned. They currently have a very good squad. They currently have an extremely good manager who's, it's tough to hate Klopp. To be very honest, I really liked Klopp before he went to Liverpool. It's just something that it just, because of the kind of work that he's done at Borussia, I'm a huge fan. And I was reading a lot of articles about how Klopp has evolved as a coach. And even after he left Borussia, I think the CEO came, he wrote it in an article that there was always a gaping gap, there was always a gap after he left, because that's the kind of impression that he creates. But it's important to also analyze what kind of players Liverpool have at the moment. If you have a look at the team, it's an aging squad. Not their team cannot carry out titles after titles for a very long time, because they have an aging squad. And when you look at teams like City as well, they have an aging squad. Now it's important to also realize that Chelsea and United are considerably younger squads, and they have talent who have higher ceilings and who have great potential. So we're in a position right now where even if Liverpool go on and win another title in the coming season, it'll probably be their last in some time, because it's all about consistency. And I think that's not been there with them for a very, very long time. As you've seen, they've not won for a very long time. Their fans are obviously extremely happy, and you can't stop them from celebrating. But I just hate the fact that they make it seem like their title is the best title that has ever been won.
Yeah.
Because that's clearly not true. That's exactly the kind of things that that put me off. Because to be very honest, I think any person who likes football, even though they hate Liverpool, they can't deny the fact that they played really well this season. they've literally blown away sides in some games. And when I saw the game against Leicester, I was like, I've never seen a team being, been blown away like that. But the fans need to understand that their success is only momentarily. And I think no club in England knows how to win better than Manchester United. So if you taunt a Manchester United fan about trophies and titles and whatnot, it's not going to end well for them. So I think now talking about if United can possibly challenge them in the near future, obviously we can. We are building a squad for the future and also getting experienced players to push for the title. So it's important that we strengthen this summer. uh, some key areas need to be addressed, but it's we are not that far away like some people make us out to be. That's all I'll say.
Absolutely, it's a great point, and that is, you hit the nail on the head when it comes to our titles better, and that's the issue that Liverpool fans, they seem to think as well. Klopp's the greatest manager in the Premier League history. This Liverpool side's the greatest side in the Premier League history. It's nonsense. They're a very good side. If they go and get three in a row and they win another Champions League, yes, you can have that conversation. But you when you're a winner and when you win, you've got to act humbly. And I don't, especially myself, and I'm sure you guys are the same, but I don't remember United fans acting this way when we used to win the trophy. I don't remember Man United fans driving to Old Trafford after you've won for the first time in 30 years. You drive to Old Trafford. That's living rent free in their heads, and it's just so it's just bad.
juvenile.
We run it too much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. Apparently now they've knocked us on off our perch. So that's what Phil Thompson said. You're still one behind us, mate. So, Robbie, how do you feel about? Obviously, you're not going to feel great about Liverpool's title win, but United have to back Ollie now because there is progression there. They have to, because otherwise, forget about City and Liverpool. Chelsea are investing heavily, and they look like they've got their bit between their teeth, and they're looking good under Lampard, especially Pulisic. I think is brilliant. Werner's a brilliant player. Ziyech's coming in. So, what do United have to do to challenge again?
Yeah, so I'm going to get the first part out of the way and say that I was obviously not speaking about Liverpool, so I'll make it short. But they did completely deserve to win it. I think everyone can agree on that. And yeah, you said earlier on, it does hurt me that Andy Robertson is so good because I support United, yeah, but we get McTominay, so it's okay. He's great, and I do love his style as well, and he's always learning. And as you said earlier on, we still won it 20 times, so we're still the best team. But yeah, anyway, back to the question. United do need to respond and move on to the next season because we've got great players developing, and hopefully bring in a few names to bring back the titles. With teams like Chelsea and City, it shows that it's not only us that are hungry for silverware. So next year will be difficult. Probably one of the hardest seasons yet. Our midfield is great for next season, but Sancho is a must for us as he's turning into a world class player. I rate him very highly. Also, I'm very happy that we're able. I'm also very happy that we've played Liverpool previously, so we don't need to give them a guard of honour because I don't think I could watch that. It would be too painful. And
absolutely,
as you guys tell, I'm pretty sure you can get that I hate Liverpool and I don't want them to win again. So I hope Man United do sign players and really get that together for next year. I think Ole has brought in fabulous players and really he's working well with players he's getting the best out of most of them. And what I said earlier on, I feel as if the whole feel-good factor is back for me. And I need to agree with you. I think it is the best team that I've seen. And I'm really enjoying watching it since Fergie. And with I think three signings still are necessary as soon as possible. And I want a winger, so probably Sancho, yeah. A defensive mid, which we went over, Partey, and preferably a left back, which I'm unsure about the personnel at this moment in time. There hasn't really been any links. And as you guys know, I'm pretty optimistic about Man United, so I hope that everyone can just get behind the team for the rest of the season because we've still got a lot to play for, and the squad seems happy to play and they're giving their all. So we can't ask for any more at this time. I wouldn't say. We just need to wait till the summer and then scrutinise a lot of the players.
Absolutely, it's a great answer. And last point before we go, boys. So, Akash, quickly, are we getting top 4? Because I think Leicester are going to drop out. If I'm being honest, they've been like a relegation form sort of team even before the restart. So for me, I think Chelsea will get 3rd, and I think we will get 4th. What's your view?
Not long before they kick off against Everton, so I think I would have been better placed had I answered after the game. But I think Leicester were always going to drop off at some point because I think they've not been extremely consistent after their return in the lockdown. So I think yes, United and Chelsea can possibly make top 4, but there are 3 avenues which I've actually looked at where we can actually make Champions League football, which is the priority. One is by winning the Europa League. I think we are well placed in that competition. I think Inter are the only side which are an obvious threat, but I think it's going to be it's going to be a good tournament if we can and if we can win it. That'll be like that to cap it off with a win. It'll be fantastic. I think then obviously top 4 is another way of getting Champions League, and City's ban, which is supposed to be lifted, or will it continue to stay? I think we'll get a judgment in the month of July by the Center for Arbitration in Sport. They'll be giving the judgment in the month of July. So I'm hopeful that maybe they could maybe just keep the ban for a year, but hope the ban still stays because that will really help United qualify for Champions League.
Absolutely, I think minimum we've got to win one of the Europa League or the FA Cup. I think Ollie needs some silverware to show as well to those that don't support him that this is a small step. You've got to win these smaller trophies. You've got to build that belief in the manager's philosophy and the team spirit and the bench. And that's where Poch did fall at Spurs, in my opinion, that he didn't go and, like Jose always does, he wins a League Cup, he wins an FA Cup, and they look like menial small trophies, but they're not. They're like one step on the journey, and each sort of checkpoint that you go to greatness. So, Robbie, where do you sit on the top 4 chances?
Yeah, I was in shock watching the Chelsea game as they managed to pull off a victory against Manchester City. I think it's hard to call now because Wolves are still very close to us as well, but there's all eyes on Chelsea and Leicester. So we must play our games and make sure all games are won to allow for top 4 European push. But I've been looking, and we've got a shot of redemption basically because we can obviously win the Europa League as we're still in this, and there's a mini kind of tournament format in August, which will be exciting because Manchester United are obviously still in it and challenging. So this season could end up as a possible successful season. I would say we can obviously, the main aim to get top 4 finish, FA Cup possible, which is we've obviously got Chelsea to look forward to if we've beaten them 3 times already, and obviously Europa League in August. And just to speak about Jose Mourinho, what happened in 2007, I was really chuffed with that. Whenever we got 3 titles in the 1 year, it was great, and I'm still staying optimistic and showing support to the club because we do have the capabilities of much more than our position in the league just now, and that's frustrating. As since the restart, we definitely deserve top 4.
Absolutely, and I think the last thing I want to say is that if only we signed Bruno earlier, because I honestly think we would be clear a 3rd, and this is on the board, and that's what I'm saying, that Liverpool's victory has to spur the board into making those signings that needed. Because, and you look at Arsenal's situation, that I think they've got a good manager there in Arteta. I did an Arsenal podcast earlier in the week, and when you research what he's doing, they're definitely improving, but he can't improve unless he gets better players in. So on that final point, I just want to say, boys, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure, and I love talking football with you, even if you don't agree with me. So thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and thanks for your great questions. Cheers.
No problem. And to our listeners, I'm sure you're already follow Akash. I mean, he's got a great page, but Robbie's really, really doing some great stuff. He's got great opinions, so definitely give him a follow and like and subscribe. And yeah, we will see you on our next episode.
Aguero!